waiting, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lee Ritenour.
Yeah, let's just plug in and dial up a little reverb maybe on the end.
I just want to let you set up.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you, Mika.
Yeah, you okay?
Yeah. Daniele will set up. I can start chatting.
Wonderful. So again, thank you so much for waiting. They did not want to leave. They wanted to wait for you. So thank you so much, and welcome to the 7th International Jazz Day in St. Petersburg, Russia. It is a huge honor to have such a legend with us. So please welcome Mr. Lee Ritenour once again. Thank you.
So I guess it's getting translated as we speak. That's great. Good afternoon. Glad to see all of you. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time because of the schedule. By the way, do I need to take some breaks while the simultaneous? Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's great. That's very sophisticated. So how many musicians in the room? Yeah. Okay, great. Excellent. How many guitar players? Wow, cool. Okay, the rest of you can leave. And so how many of you are already playing music professionally, meaning making your living, making money? Quite a few. Excellent. And then how many of you are aspiring or want to become professional musicians or do something in music full time? Okay. And I'm just trying to get a feeling, who you are. Some of you know who I am, but I want to know who you guys are. Okay, so for the musicians, guitar players, piano players, saxophone players, whatever you play, bass, drums, how many of you have been playing only 5 years or less? 5 years or less. Okay. 10 years or less? All right. 15 years? 20 years or more? Okay. No, you haven't been playing 20 years. No. All right, very good. So, this is Daniele. He's trying to get a little sound. I'm not going to play too much because I really want to hear from you guys. And questions are really good. If you have a set of questions, I think it's very important. We close enough? Yep, close enough. All right. Cool. You want any pedals and stuff? No, we're good. We're good. Yeah, I got to pick. Yeah. Buzzes and all. It's all good. So, I do quite a few master classes around the world, and since we only have about 40 minutes or something, it's hard to know where to start. But one thing that I recommend to all of you is try to find your own voice on your instrument, whether it's the guitar or if you play another instrument. Try to find your style, because there are so many musicians out there in the world today, and because of the internet, because of Wi-Fi and YouTube and everything that's in social media, the world is much smaller. There's great musicians in every country. I know there's great musicians here in Russia, and in the U.S., and Western Europe, and Asia, and South America, all over the planet now. There's, and especially when it comes to contemporary music, jazz, or progressive kinds of rock and R&B and classical, of course. There's just incredible musicians. There's also not as much work as there used to be because of the computer and because of computerized music. So playing your instrument and finding a space to work and earn a living and make money being a professional musician is more challenging than ever. And so I think it's really important that you are not a copy of another musician. So everyone's got their favorite musicians, that you follow and you get inspired, But, for instance, talking about an old famous rock player like Jimi Hendrix, there's only one Jimi Hendrix, right? So you don't need to be a carbon copy of Jimi Hendrix or Jeff Beck or Wes Montgomery or Kenny Burrell or any of even the young guys that are out there today that are making a name for themselves. It's better if you have influences from many players and many styles. It's kind of like cooking in the kitchen. You use this spice, you use this spice, and eventually you find your way, And so there's a couple ways you can help get your style. So first of all, everyone does have their style, because when you call your friend up on the phone, you don't have to say your name. They recognize your voice, right? So everyone's got an individual voice, so that you have to get this voice into your instrument. So so everyone does have their style. And one of the ways that I recommend sort of finding your style is by writing songs. So very, very important to write your own music. So doesn't matter if you're a drummer, bass player, piano player, guitar player, saxophone, horn player, very important to write your own music. And sometimes what happens if you start writing and you get frustrated, and let's say you spend 2 weeks trying to just write songs, okay? That's all you do. Just spend 2 weeks writing a song. The first 10 days you're not gonna be happy, You're gonna write these songs and you're gonna say, at least this happens to me. It's like, oh, that's horrible. That's a copy of something I already wrote. Oh, that sounds like somebody else, And so you're writing and writing, but it's like a muscle, It's like a technique on the guitar. Writing music is also an exercise. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And so professional songwriters, they write every day, all day long, So it's important to write these songs. So let's say you're writing for 2 weeks. The first 10 days, you're not happy with anything. All of a sudden, a song appears. And maybe it took 30 minutes to write that song. Maybe it took 3 days to write that song. That's okay. And all of a sudden you go, wow, I kind of like that. And you're happy with the song. And so it's sitting there. It's over here. You've either recorded it on your phone or on your computer, or you've written it down, but it exists, separate from, now it's outside of you. It's right there. And you can go, okay, that's kind of me. I like that, And you have to acknowledge that you do like it. And then sometimes that makes it easier to go to the next song, and then all of a sudden things that you like about music are appearing. Because in today's world, there's so many influences. There's so many players that, we get inspired by. There's so many different kinds of music. There's world music. There's metal. There's progressive rock. There's jazz. There's traditional jazz. There's fusion. There's R&B. There's pop. There's indigenous music from your country, from another country. You might love Brazilian music. It's because, and everything is at the touch of, on your phone, on the computer. You can just access any music immediately. So that's great, but it also can be confusing, So when you're writing those songs, it really can help you get your style, So now, my writing style has varied depending on the kind of music. Sometimes. Sometimes it's just a melodic idea that I carry through. Sometimes, very often, I'll come up with a signature, especially on the contemporary stuff, a signature vamp thing like. And then I'll start building a song from there. Not a good sounding amp. And then Uh, uh, then I'll start tune. Then I'll go back to the vamp. That was a tune that I wrote for guitarist Wes Montgomery years ago when I did a tribute album to the great Wes Montgomery. No, it's all great. And, some. So a lot of my tunes, I'll use sort of a thematic vamp as to start a tune or in the middle of the tune. There's definitely different techniques for writing. So I really recommend studying composition too, studying classical composition. It's really important. The classical composers, of course, you have some of the greatest ones out of Russia, and so the classical composers, they knew all the good tricks. So, just studying basic analysis of classical composition, even if you don't like classical music, you don't have anything to do with classical music, but check out, if you can, get with somebody and study the analysis of classical compositions, because you get that under your belt a little bit, it really helps in composing pop music, rock, R&B, whatever. It's amazing how the history of music is all connected, So let's take a couple questions. Please. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Вот вы говорили о том, что очень много разной информации сейчас появилось в мире, и в том числе очень много школ. Вот как правильно сосредоточиться, чтобы выбрать именно ту информацию, которая полезна, чтобы не попадать под влияние каких-то школ, которые были написаны в большей степени с целью, может, заработать денег в том числе? Спасибо.
Okay, so who's going to translate? Oh, it's best if I wear that, huh? Okay. Channel 2. So, where do I do like that? Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, all right. Say the question again.
Вы уже говорили о том, что в мире очень много информации новой, и в том числе очень много разных видео и аудиошкол, по которым надо учиться. И мне кажется, проблема современного музыкального образования в том, что очень большое количество информации не позволяет нам на чем-то сосредоточиться и заниматься чем-то очень серьезно и основательно, то есть чтобы доводить каждый эпизод нашего занятия до конца. Вот что бы вы порекомендовали для того, чтобы не отвлекаться и заниматься именно тем, что нам нужно в 100% вероятности? Потому что есть большое количество видеошкол, которые музыканты пишут просто для того, чтобы выжить, чтобы заработать деньги. Они выпускают эти школы, потому что это часть их материального труда просто.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question is a very good one, and it's not an easy answer. I think, are you a guitarist, for instance? Yes. Okay. So let's just talk about the guitar for a minute. I think you have to. All this information is coming in, from school, from teachers, from the internet, from, you can spend, 24 hours a day just surfing, YouTube and checking that out. And then if you're going to school and you're studying, and if you're studying with a private teacher, and then another teacher at the school is giving some other kind of information. So there's all sorts of information, and then you're trying to figure out, well, how am I going to make money and how am I going to earn, being. But if you're, for instance, you have your instrument, you have the guitar, it always has to come back to the guitar, So even if you end up doing something else in music eventually, you end up writing for films or TV or commercials or video games, or you end up being a producer, or you end up. But I think if you concentrate on the foundation of the guitar first and bring the orchestra, so to speak, of all the stuff that everyone's trying to show you back down into the guitar, it helps. Whenever I had too much stuff going on in my life, I would just spend time just practicing and shutting everybody out except me and the guitar. So it's not a great answer because it's a big question you ask, but I feel for you. And by the way, you think all this information is just rattling around in your head. After a few years and you're out of school and you're you'll find your direction, all that information will sort of line up a little better. It's sort of like a defragmented computer. It gets lined up after a while and it doesn't seem as complicated. So keep taking in all the information, even if it seems confusing now. It will get clear as you go on, I think. Another question? Let me put my little guy back on here.
Я хочу сказать огромное спасибо вам, в первую очередь, за вашу музыку, за потрясающий период вашего творчества с группой For Play и дальше сольные альбомы. Это с чего я хотел начать. И хотел спросить, в одном концерте у вас часто происходит изменение жанровое, то есть вы начинаете играть, допустим, музыку бразильскую, совсем другой ритмической сеткой, может быть, даже и это меняет происходит ли у вас что-то в мышлении, как-то вы двигаетесь именно, что вот именно эту музыку бразильскую, самбо или это там нео, босанова какая-то, ее нужно играть несколько в другом ощущении и в другом ритме. Или вы продолжаете это делать по-своему, как говорят, там, джазовая, там, бразильская музыка и так далее. То есть вот именно в этом ключе вопрос.
Okay, that's a really great question. So to me, every aspect, this is something to really remember, every aspect of music, I don't care if you're playing a rhythm guitar in a band, you're producing a band in the studio, you're playing Brazilian music and trying to play or legitimate, kinds of music, trying to play straight ahead jazz, trying to play Brazilian music, trying to write songs, what it really, for me, what everything is improvisation. Everything is creative in music, all the way down to the mixing of your album, to the mastering, to the getting it on a CD, which nobody does anymore, and all the way from whether you're trying to be really legitimately traditional and play a very legitimate Brazilian style, or you're trying to play jazz, or you're trying to play rock or metal, you're writing a song, whatever you're doing, getting sounds out of your pedals, setting them up in a certain way so they sound a certain way, getting your amp to sound a certain way. It's for me, there's a certain aspect that it's always about improvisation, which means, for me, always being a jazz musician, even when it has nothing to do with jazz, So even if I'm in like today we have an African piece we're doing and I'm rocking out at the end, but I'm still coming from a jazz point of view. And then there's a Brazilian piece that we're doing, a Gilberto Gil song with Luciana Sosa earlier, and I'm trying to, get inside the samba and be as Brazilian as I can. But it's all a creative aspect. Everything you do in music is creative. If you're a classical player and you're interpreting the notes on a paper and learning to play a Segovia classical guitar piece that millions of people have played before you, you're still interpreting it, you're still playing jazz, It's for me, it's all jazz. and it doesn't matter if you're playing metal or classical or writing a song or producing a record. It's all creative. So let's see if maybe we have a couple of amps. I guess do we have another amp set up? I was thinking if somebody wants to get up and we'll play a little blues or something, you know. So, yeah. Well, let's do these two here, you know. So, how long have you been playing guitar? 10 years? Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's get them set up. And meanwhile, while he's setting up, let's get another question. Mm-hmm.
Добрый день. Скажите, пожалуйста, было ли в течение вашей карьеры такое чувство, что игра на гитаре перестала быть для вас самым любимым делом, а стала... There is no sound?
Yeah, I'm not getting the translate here. Oh. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Еще раз. Скажите, пожалуйста, было ли в течение вашей карьеры, посещало ли вас такое чувство, что игра на инструменте и музыка перестала быть вашим вот любимым делом, а стала рабочей рутиной? И вы этим занимаетесь, потому что это то, что вы делали в течение долгих лет, и, в общем-то, это единственное, что вы умеете в жизни, и вы продолжаете этим заниматься. Но как, если такое вдруг случалось в вашей жизни, как вам удалось снова почувствовать вот вдохновение, что это то самое любимое дело в жизни? Это все.
It's another great question. So, you know, I have been playing the guitar a long, long time. I'm 66, and I've been playing since I was 8 years old, so way over 50 years. And it has been the love of my life, and it's something that I fell in love with at a very, very young age, and it has continued. It is sometimes, you know, there was definitely times where it was frustrating, and the learning curve for learning the guitar, I would fight with it and get frustrated and almost cry trying to get to the next step, you know. And then, but the direct question being, did I ever get tired or burned out and just had to keep doing it because that's what I did in life? I can say, fortunately, that I've had this love affair with music and the guitar, and it's never left. It's never abated. I think that has to do with the fact that I fought to try to play music that I believed in. And even when I was a studio musician, you know, I worked on a lot of big famous records, right? But I also worked on, you know, dog food commercials. So, you know, not everything was this glamorous working with Pink Floyd or Quincy Jones or Michael Jackson, or a lot of it was some pretty terrible music, you know. But then I would concentrate on the craft of the guitar and the craft of trying to make that song from that particular artist, which maybe was terrible, but trying to make that song better or that artist sound better. And so I'd always try to find a way to find something positive about music, about the guitar, about what I was doing. And, you know, sometimes it is good to take breaks, you know. I'll go on a big tour, and I will be playing every day on the road, and, you know, just the guitar is in my hands all the time. And then I'll go home, and the music business starts to take over. And then I don't pick up the guitar for a week, and then I do, and my hands feel terrible, you know. And as I get older, you know, when you're 25 and you're playing 8 hours a day, and then you take a break, it comes back pretty fast. You know, when you're my age, it doesn't come back quite as fast. So, you know, I have to, you know, stay on top of it. So I hate that feeling when I have left the guitar and have to come back and get back up to speed. You know, that part I don't like at all. But then, you know, I'll sit in front of the TV and noodle for 4 or 5 hours, and I feel better. So, oh, you're here. Wow, that's a nice guitar. What do you got there? Look out, man. You're looking good. All right. So, okay, a couple of questions. Let me get my little translator. So, how long have you been playing? 10 years, you said? And how old are you?
16.
16. Wow, cool. So, all right, you started pretty young too. And what kind of music do you like in general?
Jazz.
Jazz, uh-huh. Excellent.
Smooth jazz.
Smooth jazz, okay, all right, cool, all right. And do you write any of your own music?
Иногда. Sometimes.
Sometimes. Well, you gotta start doing that more, right? You gotta write your songs, you know. So, and you know, writing songs is also it's a wonderful. If you get into songwriting, and regardless of the kind of music, if you're into fusion or smooth jazz or progressive rock or metal or pop or R&B, whatever the kind of music you're doing, you know, writing songs later, if you have 100 songs in your catalog someday, you know, you're going to make some money from that. So it's you know, so that's a good thing, you know, because we've got to pay the rent, you know, we got to pay for our families, and you got to be able to have enough money to buy a new guitar. You know, it's important. Okay, so let's. Do you play any solo guitar pieces? Do you want to play something solo for me a little bit? Yes. Yeah. Nice. All right. Very, very good. So you have a very nice feel. So, and I think only being 16 and with that feel and touch, I think you're on to a very nice direction with your guitar playing. You know, so congratulations. And I think. Do you also do you on your right hand? Do you always play with fingers, or you sometimes play with a pick too? With a pick, yeah. So you do both. And do you study classical guitar a little bit as well?
Совсем немного.
A little bit, yeah. So I think with the way you play, I think it would be a good thing for you to also study a little bit of classical guitar. I think it would improve your electric guitar playing as well. So I recommend that when you have a chance. So I'm going to play like a little rhythm vamp, and not even a blues, just a couple of changes, and maybe you improvise over the changes a little bit, okay? So. Obviously, I was using changes similar to your standard that you were playing. So when you go to the G minor C, you know, it would be good for you to sometimes really follow the changes and define that a little bit better, you know. I think you have to get the pedagogy of jazz improvisation, you know, a little more under your fingers. But the feel and the approach and the melodic approach you're taking is all very good. Thank you. All right, one more? Yeah. All right. So we don't have too much more time here. They're going to drag me out of here in 10 minutes to go rehearse one more song for tonight's performance. But while he's setting up, one more question? Up there? Okay.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks for being here. That's huge. Thank you. And my question is, like, I'm not the very young guy, okay? And when we started, there were like technical gods like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Birelli Legrand and other guys, right? And now the young guys, they blow them out of the water in terms of speed and precision. And when I'm like surfing the web and I'm looking for the young guys playing, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what is this? And I think that for a young musician, it can be very, very tiresome. It was tiresome for me when I was young to draw the line between when it's enough technique, actually. When it is your approach is very close to what is important to me, right? Your approach is like be melodical and be creative, but to be competitive right now, you have to be technically at the level. Yes. So I really want to hear you when you do draw this line when it's enough technique for you.
It's a great question. There are some incredible, gifted, very young musicians, not just on the guitar, but on every instrument, that, have just gone to another planet as far as the level of technique. But I think, let me draw the analogy with drummers. Drummers is another one where the drummers have all this incredible technique these days, right? And, some of the greatest drummers playing today, Vinnie Colaiuta, Dave Weckl, all these guys, they have phenomenal technique. But most of all, they're great musicians. So Steve Gadd, for instance, one of the most famous drummers, and one that had plenty of technique, but not nearly the technique that some of the other drummers, especially the young ones, have today. But he still ends up making incredible music, and he works more than almost anybody, and he's 70 years old now. And so, and why is that? Because he is making music, so the answer to your question, I think, whether you love B.B. King and you're playing a few notes, or you're inspired by Alan Holdsworth and all the players that followed Alan, and you have this incredible technique and you're playing very technical fusion, complicated music, it really depends on what you love. And it's all good, long as you're making music. I think an audience, when you start playing for audiences, let's say you have the technique of Alan Holdsworth, and or beyond even, which some of them do today. And I know a few in LA that you've never heard of that, can play Alan Holdsworth better than Alan could, and God bless him. And so but when you're playing for the audience, and music is a two-way street. You have to get the feedback from the audience back to you, back to the audience, back to you. It's a constant feedback. If there's a wall between you and the audience, that audience is not going to come the next time to hear you play. So you don't have to dumb down your playing. You don't have to make it more simple, but you have to communicate. So, and music is communication. Music is spirit. Music is love. Music is emotion. So, and you have to create that emotion with the audience, and the audience has to give it back to you, and you give it back to them, and it's this incredible thing that happens. So I think regardless of your technique, how much technique you have, how little technique you have, I mean, John Mayer can get the audience off, and he doesn't, he has good technique, but not unbelievable or too much technique. And Eric Clapton still can play three notes and get everybody going, and then there's other guys that are just unbelievably technical. Last year I did the Tokyo Jazz Festival with Pat Martino, incredible, legendary bebop guitar player. He's still got more technique than anybody I know, but he's making music and communicating and got that spirit. So I wouldn't worry too much about if the guy on YouTube is 13 years old and is blowing you away with technique. My friend Steve Lukather said, yeah, there was this kid in a fetus and he was playing his ass off. So they get younger and younger. Pretty soon there's a 7-year-old that has so much technique, you go, what? But is that 7-year-old maybe going to grow up to be the next John Coltrane? Could be, or are they going to be looking for some other kind of work because they never learned how to create that spirit to make music with the audience? So just keep that in mind. It is a community of making music. So anyway. What's your name? Andre. And how long have you been playing?
Almost 20 years.
Good. His English is great. I don't have to put the thing on. So almost 20 years. Okay. Now, and are you doing this professionally?
Maybe.
A little bit. Right. What kind of guitar?
Eastman?
Oh, Eastman. Those are nice. Yeah. So, do you want to play just a little solo something?
Could we play together?
Oh, okay. We can play
something?
together. You want to play you want to play a blues? Let's play some blues. A little C minor blues.
C minor. Okay.
Very nice playing, great feel, and I've heard, of course today just a couple players, but I've heard other Russian musicians, and I always get amazed. You guys always have such a nice kind of feel and pocket. It works well over here. Thank you so much.
My first jazz record was Elixir.
Oh, wow, from Foreplay. All right, thank you. So one last thing I want to mention, time. When we were talking about young players having incredible technique and young players coming up with all this information that you're learning and everything. But sometimes what gives it away that they're not quite there yet is the phrasing and the time, you know. So it's very important to be very aware of your time. You can have all the greatest ideas. You can have, you know, you can be playing all this amazing stuff on the guitar. You can have this amazing technique. But if you don't have good time, you know, that's the most important thing, especially when you're playing with a band. So, you know, it's very important to play with real musicians. You play in your bedroom with YouTube, and you stay in your bedroom just playing to computerized tracks and stuff. Not a great idea, you know. I mean, it's good to do that, but you got to get out and play with other musicians, especially with a band, and regardless of the kind of music, and phrasing and time, that'll tell the difference between really good players and not so good players. And why do you sometimes like a certain player over another player? It's because of the feel, the way they phrase, the way their time is. So, you know, practicing with a metronome, practicing with a band, and checking out, when you're checking out other guitar players or other musicians that you like, you know, why do you like that saxophone player? Why do you like the way Michael Brecker plays or Stan Getz plays, or you know, why do you like a certain guitar player? A lot of it has to do with their feel. And sometimes you know, how do you learn feel? Well, you know, you first of all, you got to be aware of it. If you're only learning technique and you're so involved in just the technique of playing the instrument, and you're not concerned about the phrasing and the feel, and again, the communication with the audience. So just keep that in mind. That's like almost like the biggest gift I could give you. The other thing, and one little tip. When you're practicing at home, when you're playing out live, of course, we all look at the guitar neck, right? But sometimes I'll go to a restaurant and have dinner, and there'll be a band in the corner playing. And I'll you know, of course, I'll check out the band, you know, and I'll look at the guitar player, right? And the guitar player's doing... And right away, I know it's not happening, you know. So, you know, you don't have to look at the guitar while you're practicing. You know, now, if you see me play tonight, you know, and I'm going for that high D, I'm gonna look, you know. And so, you know, there can come, you know, if you got a big shift, you know, or if I'm playing some important line, you know, and I'm doubling with Herbie Hancock, I'm gonna make sure I know where I am, you know. But you know, short of that, you know, just get lost in the music, you know. So even when you're practicing at home, close your eyes and don't open them for an hour. Try that, okay? So anyway, thank you. All right.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much, Lee. It was wonderful. Thank you.